Cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Oh, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Let's see, before we get started today, I'm going to turn my prayer rug towards Washington. And I have to say a prayer to High Priest Barry, his 535 bishops, and the 7 oracles. We should all thank them for what they give us, the air, the sun, everything that Washington brings us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right now, what are they all worried about? The sequester. They're going to cut $80 billion or some such thing out of the budget over 2 years. But a couple years ago, they were spending at $1 trillion at a time. Remember, we need $780 billion for this, and we need a stimulus or a porculus of this, and trillions of dollars. But now we're going to take less than 1/10 of $1 trillion and take it out of the budget over 2 years, and it's going to cause the entire government to collapse. I call horse hockey on that one. What else do we know? Legal news in Pennsylvania. I guess there's a sentencing date for the Supreme Court justice. I don't know if she's been formally removed yet or not. I think the Judicial Conduct Board and the Supreme Court have the power to remove her. But if she doesn't step down or they don't remove her, then she's going to have to be impeached by our legislature. I don't think they've done an impeachment since Ralph Larson, I believe, was the last Supreme Court justice who was impeached. So we'll see if that happens or not. 540-0580 is the talk line number. Whatever you guys want to talk about. I know I just posted something on Facebook about turning left on one-ways. We'll talk about that after the break at 1:15. So you guys can learn a little bit about traffic law. What I do is as I drive around and I notice people doing things wrong, I post them on Facebook so that you can see what the traffic law actually is. So one of my favorite ones is the person who stays out in the left lane and never goes back to the right lane. So if you're driving down the road right now and you're in the left lane, that's called the passing lane. That means if you're passing somebody, you're in the left lane. If you're not currently passing somebody, you should return to the right lane. And if you're in the left lane riding alongside a truck for more than, say, 1/10 of a mile, then you're an idiot. 540-0580. Gary, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, thanks. Hey, a quick question for you. I recently had a brother who passed away, and my sister-in-law wants me to have all his guns. He has long guns and handguns, and I just wanted to know how I go about that, if the handguns have to be registered or if I can just...
Some of the listeners are chomping at the bit because as soon as you say they have to be registered, we don't register guns in Pennsylvania. Okay?
Okay.
We have no gun registration in Pennsylvania. That said, if somebody had guns at the time they died, they can leave them to their wife or their children or their grandchildren or to grandpa without any transfer needing to be done. Okay?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is when I say no transfer, you don't have to go to a gun shop. You don't have to do a formal bill of sale. You don't have to do anything along those lines. The problem is when you're the executor, you do want to make sure that the person passes the background check because you don't want to be the guy that hands a gun to somebody who's not lawfully entitled to have one and then have them later claim that you knew that, right?
Okay.
So for safety, we tell people to go to a registered gun store, like firearms licensed, federal firearms licensee, and do it there where an instant check can be run on the transfer. It's a nominal charge per gun, maybe $20 a gun or thereabouts. And it puts the executor in a good position because that way you've met your duty under the will to pass them on as an asset to whoever they go to. Now, if the will doesn't speak about who they go to, then, the executor gets to sort that out. And
okay, like I say, it's my it was my brother and it's my sister-in-law, and she just wants to keep them in the family. She wants me to have them, and then someday pass them on to my son. And I own weapons myself. I have a carry permit, so I don't think she's really worried about
So all she need to do is you can do a private bill of sale, which is basically just write her a receipt for taking possession of them. The long arms you don't have to do anything with. You can just buy those at a garage sale,
Right.
So, that's pretty much your only duty. Now, her job is if she's doing the estate, those were probably marital property, meaning that they belong to her husband, but they belong to both of them during the marriage. So those transferred to her as part of the estate. And
Okay.
same thing as the house. So she doesn't have to give those to you. They just belong to her now.
Right.
So they don't have to be accounted for in the estate because they are entirety's property and belong to her. So she doesn't need to open an estate to transfer them, and she can gift them to you. And as long as the value is less than, $10,000 plus whatever the adjustment is these days, then it's below the gift tax threshold.
Okay, well, it's less than that, but I just wanted to make sure, as far as like the handguns, that we didn't have to do anything about as far as registering them or transferring.
When we've had the firearms licensees call in, they all tell us that you can do a private transfer of handguns in Pennsylvania. What they tell us, though, is you just want to be careful because you don't want to be the person transferring it to somebody who doesn't have the ability to own a firearm and then get in trouble later.
Right.
But you already know
all
you
right.
can.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye-bye.
540-0580. Tom, who wants to talk about free wills? You're on the air, Tom. What's going on?
Yes, are you still doing that, Carl?
We still do those. If you contact the office, they'll send you out a kit.
Oh, great. What's the office number, please?
The office number is 717 area code 241-6070. Again, the office number is 241-6070.
6070.
Yep, 241-6070. Not to be confused with the talk line number for the next couple hours, which is 540-0580. All right?
I've been there.
All right, Tom.
So what you're talking about. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we've still give away the free will kits if you contact the office. Okay, Tom, number 2, you're on the air. Tom.
The other Tom?
The other Tom. You, Tom.
Yeah, Tom. This is Tom.
Hey.
Can you get a protection order against somebody that makes verbal threats against your life in Pennsylvania?
You can get a Protection from Abuse Act order if they're within the lines of contiguity or paramour of some sort, boyfriend, girlfriend kind of thing. But otherwise, you're just going to have to get a regular old civil restraining order, which is basically just a nuisance order. We don't have a great catch-all statute for that.
What, is that an order that would keep them to have to stay a certain distance from you?
There are orders like that. In Pennsylvania, we have a Protection from Abuse Act, which it involves boyfriends, girlfriends, brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters, kids, grandkids, all those sorts of things, boyfriends, girlfriends.
That's what I was told.
It's actually such a nightmare that you can go out on one date and end up with one. So now, is this somebody that you have that type of relationship with or no?
That's the problem. I don't have that type of relationship.
Right, so you can't get to them easily. So otherwise, you have to file just a private nuisance suit, which would basically be an injunction, and say, hey, Judge, this guy or gal has threatened me, and they're making my life difficult, and they're harassing me, and I want an order compelling them to remain, X number of feet away and have no communication with me. So it's just a common law injunction.
Would that have to be filed at a district justice?
No, you'd have to go to the court of common pleas and write out a pleading, and it'd be expensive. If you're a movie star, you want to drop $15,000 to get one of these.
Well, that's the problem. I'm not a movie star. Do I have $15,000?
Right. And so, on the other hand, could a lawyer do one for $1,500, $2,000 probably, but not less than that, I would guess.
Oh,
just because you're going to have now, if the other person just agrees, right? But why would the person who wants to harass you agree to anything that you want?
Well, I have it in writing that they agreed.
Oh, that they will stay away from you?
No, that they agreed that they threatened my life.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe it is fairly easy. That might be a little more straightforward. Maybe then you're looking at a filing fee of a couple $100 and maybe, less than $1,000 in attorney time.
Would you do something like that?
Sure. Why not?
All right, then I can contact your office.
Yep.
Then.
You got the office number, 241-6070?
Yes, I do.
All right. Take care, Tom.
Thank you.
540-0580. Got to go to break. Well, good Saturday afternoon. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Just joining the show. I'm here answering your legal questions that I do every Saturday from 1 to 3 on WHP 580. Oh, boy, oh, boy. I'm just going to mention Sandy Lee by name on air here. See, like R.J. Harris did it the other day, and she missed it, and I caught it and put it on my Facebook, and she was all excited. I think she went back and listened to the podcast. She was doing some research that R.J. gave her credit for. 540-0580. Bob, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. I got a question for you on protecting assets of children. My wife and I, both previously married, both have children to previous marriages.
Okay.
And looking at in Pennsylvania, when one spouse dies, the assets roll to the surviving spouse.
Correct.
When that spouse dies, how would you recommend protecting the assets of the earliest deceased spouse in real estate for their heirs?
Well, it's funny you mention this. I just was working on a will like this the other day, but here's the deal. You've got to do something ahead of that, because if you leave everything, let's say the real estate's in your name, and you leave it to your spouse, then they can do whatever they want with it. Are you on an airplane?
No, I'm sorry, I'm in a car.
Okay. So the long and short of it is, usually you would want to use an antenuptial agreement. So, for instance, the two of you, before you got married, could have entered into a prenuptial agreement. But you would have the power now, if you chose to enter into an agreement that says, here's how our assets will be handled, and we'll waive certain spousal rights under the fiduciaries code, or basically the estate code.
And you would do that through a simple will?
Well, through a simple will, the problem is the spouse can always take against the will. And then there's rules if you have other biological children from a previous marriage, but the spouse can still potentially take against the will and remove at least some of the assets. So my advice, a lot of times, if you trust the other person, you guys can always work out irrevocable reciprocal wills that says, I'll do this and you agree to do that. But the best way to do it would be with a contractual agreement through what we call an antenuptial agreement, or in this case, a nuptial agreement. And say, this is how we'll handle things. But it can be done.
Got it. Okay. Wonderful. I appreciate the advice.
All right, Bob, good luck.
Thanks.
And that, commonly when people say, I would never get a prenup, and I know another lawyer who often says, talking about prenups all the time, and I always say that lawyer, like, there's very few prenups out there, actually. And the reason for that is most people, when they get married the first time, get married for love and blah, 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 and they go, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. Don't need a prenup, and then everything goes wrong, later, half the time. But the area where we see people seeking prenups, and everybody likes it a lot of times, is you get a couple in their 50s, let's say, or 60s. They've got kids that are now adults or young adults, and the kids sort of like, wow, mom's just going to give away, her inheritance from dad and to this no deadbeat guy. In the meantime, the deadbeat guy's kids, who know he has some assets, are going, this gold-digging woman's just going to steal my inheritance. So they get together and they write a prenup, and that way the kids know right from the beginning, and a lot of times they advertise it to all the kids, hey, we have a prenuptial here, and we're keeping our estates separate, and here's what we're going to do. And if we build something together, we're going to handle it one way, but everything we came in with and everything we have, we're going to leave with. So it's interesting. 540-0580. Cole, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, this is Cole. A couple of weeks ago, I was listening to you, and you made reference to a website about the Pennsylvania concealed carry or the carry permit. I missed getting that down. I was wondering if you could give that back out again. Where you're allowed to carry and where you're not, when you're allowed to conceal.
I think it's concealedcarry.com. Are you on Facebook?
No, I'm not.
All right. Well, Cole, listen for a little bit. During the break at the bottom of the half hour, I'll look it up here for you.
Okay.
So you got to keep listening, even if you don't want to, till about 35 after. Okay.
All right, we'll try to do that.
All right, brother.
All right, thank you.
Shane, remind me to do that or I'll forget. Brian, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl, how are you?
Good. What's going on?
Hey, Carl, this is Brian. You spoke to my daughter and I on Wednesday evening referencing her registration.
Yes.
Okay, got a question for you. I went to PennDOT this morning to transfer the registration into my name. They told me I couldn't do it because the title's not in my name.
So they won't let you register the car because it's not titled to you?
Yes.
I've never heard of that problem before.
I didn't either. Because I'm going to have to get new plates and everything, right?
Right.
Because,
so what I would do, skip PennDOT and go right to one of the notaries.
I'll go to one of the tag dealers?
Yeah, and see what they say. Maybe PennDOT's just trying to give you a hard time because they know what you're trying to do.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think that either. I never heard of it before.
I was unaware that one couldn't. I thought one could always register a car in their name, whether they own it or not.
Okay, so we just need to go to one of those places that do tag transfers.
Give it a try there, because they may have been looking in their system, going, "Okay, this is Dad trying to transfer from daughter to circumvent the
Oh, no, we didn't even get that far. We got as close as the information desk at the Rock in Harrisburg, and that's all the further we got. She wouldn't even give us a number to go to a counter to talk to anybody. She said you can't do it. That the title has to be in your name.
I don't know about that. I'm really confused about that because I know for a fact quite frequently we lease cars, like, so we'll have a client, right?
Yeah.
And the client will own a company, but they'll buy the car, but then they'll lease the car to the company, and the company will register the car.
Right.
So I don't find that to be true.
Okay. Well, my daughter said, well, our attorney said, she says, well, your attorney's wrong, and he's smoking crack. So apparently, Carl, you're smoking crack.
Well, wait, I'm gonna leave that alone and not admit to anything. But I'm gonna take a look at this again during the break here. We'll take a look and grab quick and see. But I know this for a fact because the reason I say I know you can do it is this happens all the time because for tax purposes, these guys will, they'll have one LLC own the vehicle, but another LLC driving it and da-da-da-da-da. And so I know this because we write these lease agreements for the purpose of allowing one entity to own the car and the other one to operate it and license it and register it and the whole 9 yards.
Correct.
So I don't think they know what they're talking about.
I don't think either. All right, well, I'll keep listening, and I'll see what you have to say.
All right, brother.
Hey, thanks.
540-0580. Bill, you want to talk about Obamacare?
Yeah, I have a couple just maybe basic questions.
Were you here at the beginning of the show when we said our prayer to the great priest in Washington and all his 535 bishops and the 7 oracles?
Hello?
So, we pray to Washington, so we may be pro-Obama here. I never know. All right, go ahead.
Well, what I'm getting at is I hear all these rumors. If you don't have this insurance, if you don't have insurance now, you're going to get a fine. I want to know, when is the deadline that you must show that you have insurance? Because I don't have any right now. I can't afford it off my paycheck, and I refused it at work. What I'm trying to get at is there going to be a point where I'm going to get a fine for not having it, or what's going to happen as far as me not having it, and when is that deadline,
The requirement is January 1, 2014, but there's a gazillion exceptions to that.
1/1/14 is that you must have some kind of insurance.
Theoretically, yes, but even right now, they're delaying all the, they keep delaying the deadlines, for instance, for the health insurance exchanges, because a lot of the states are saying, heck no, we're not doing it, including ours.
I really don't believe they should be allowed to make you buy it. I mean, that's my whole point.
Well, here's the problem. John Roberts, Republican appointee, I correctly predicted, I can prove this, I did it on the air, before it happened, I correctly predicted he would buck the trend and go against the Republicans on this one, and he's the one that caused the individual mandate to be constitutional with a cockamamie opinion that makes no sense whatsoever.
And what was his name?
John Roberts, Chief Justice, Supreme Court of the United States, Bush appointee.
Okay.
That's your best friend now. He's the one who put Obamacare as an individual mandate. It was his vote.
Well, like I said, I don't believe the government should be allowed to tell you you must buy something.
Well,
like that.
four of the oracles have spoken, and that's all it takes.
Okay. So after this point, if they quit bumping this deadline up, where's it going to hit a point?
I'm sorry, 5 of the oracles, I should
go
say.
Around and say you're going to get a fine now, or what?
Let me correct that. 5 of the oracles, because there's 9 on that court. The short answer is theoretically you're going to be fined, but if you qualify, you can get it for free. If you're a veteran, you're supposedly going to qualify. Of course, as you know, if you're a veteran now, you're going to lose your gun right ownership if they mention that you're disabled and send you a crazy letter. We were talking about those last week. I'm just digressing for a second. But my point is, nobody really knows. We know that theoretically, January 1, 2014, the IRS is going to start enforcing some kind of proof of health coverage. But what it really means and how it will actually work by then, no one knows. There's a huge power struggle going on in Washington. There's a huge power struggle going on with the states. And frankly, the federal government doesn't even know how to implement this beast.
I had just had my taxes done a couple of weeks ago at H&R Block, and they already at that point asked me, well, do you have any health care? And no, I don't. Well, do you know you have to have that now? I said, I've heard that. I said,
Right.
But yeah, the H&R Block is already required to ask you, this year if you have it or not. So it's another way of them tracking you, I guess. But all right, I just wanted to know. I don't want somebody showing up the door and saying you're under arrest because you don't have insurance, you know?
Well, we're not quite to that point yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if someday.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, Bill.
Bye.
Yeah, Bill, you kind of got your finger on the pulse there. There's a lot of problems. Nobody knows what the answers are. James, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Carl. Thanks very much for taking my call.
No problem.
I'm calling about the Central Dauphin School District census. It sounds petty, but I'm getting paranoid and reacting accordingly.
A lot of our callers are paranoid, but go ahead.
Well, I guess it isn't paranoia if it's justified, is it?
Even paranoid people have enemies, right?
I wondered what my legal obligation is to fill this thing out and return it. They're rather oblique in their. It's
Central Dauphin themselves sending it out.
Yeah, the form is headed with the Central Dauphin letterhead, and it just requests, and they've done it before, but they want the last four digits in my Social Security number, and they want the names of everyone who resides within our home, and I just don't feel like giving it to them.
I don't think, listen, we've talked about this. You threw me a little curveball here because I get the census calls all the time about like the U.S. Census, and the answer is yes, you have to answer it under penalty of law, and Congress has laws, and they're enabled to do it, and yada, yada, yada. But as for a school district census, I'm not sure of any enabling statute that requires that, so I don't think you'd have to send it back.
No, I don't get the I think they would have implied a threat if they actually had any footing, but
yeah.
There doesn't seem to be anything in the
There may
letter.
They may just be trying to do, for planning purposes, like who lives in the households, what are the ages, so we can figure out how many kids we're going to have. And
well, yeah, that's ostensibly that's what it appears to be, but regardless of that, I think it's intrusive, and I just have an aversion to officious bureaucrats to start with, and so I'm going to assume that I don't have to fill it out, and
right.
If they trot some toad around to visit, why I'll cave in probably, but
yeah, no, I think you absolutely don't have to answer it, so I wouldn't feel compelled.
Okay, I'll take that as gospel, and I'm relieved to know. I appreciate your help, sir.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
540-0580, see you after the break. All right, we're back. During the break, I was going to refresh my Sam Adams, and we're drinking the Latitude 48 IPA for those of you who care. I ran into the great Bob Durgett in the hall, who said that the Central Dauphin School District, as he recalls, this survey that the caller was talking about a minute ago is really more about tax than anything else, and that they will send somebody to your house to knock on your door and give you a little, what's going on, who are you, who's living here kind of thing. So that's the answer that Bob said. It has nothing to do with helping kids and everything to do with the taxing strategy, and that he believes that's the situation as he recollects it from having lived there in the past, and I suspect probably even having talked about it on a show. 540-0580. Ed, you're on the air. Hey, Ed.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Just a comment about this registering a car when your title's not in your name.
Yes.
Just a quick comment. I've leased a number of cars over the years, when I pick up the car, the plates are on it, and the registration's in my name, or my name is my wife's name. I've never seen the title. It never had my name on it. When I turned the car in, I turned in the plates, but I never had to sign the title back over or anything like that. So I think that lady that said you're smoking crack is smoking something herself.
Right. She's smoking stronger crack.
But the point is that either the leasing company or the dealership or somebody, they own the car. I'm just driving it, but the registration's in my name.
Right, and that's what I thought too. Because I'm telling you, we write these things from time to time to help people.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was just I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in.
All right, my friend.
All right, thank you.
All right,
enjoy your show. Bye.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Jim, you had a question about repossessed vehicles.
Hi, Carl.
Yeah.
Hi. about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I had an RV that was repossessed. I was notified it was gone. I didn't know nobody told me it was gone. I kept it at a storage facility. And some time went by, probably about a month, maybe 2 months before I realized it was gone. So when I contacted the bank about it, they said it's gone. It already went to auction. And you have no chance in getting it back. They also wouldn't tell me about the agency or who came and picked up the vehicle because I had a lot of very personal items inside the vehicle.
So let me ask this question. The car was repossessed by somebody.
Yeah.
And you owed money to somebody.
Pardon?
You did owe money to somebody on the vehicle?
Yeah, well, I owed money to the bank. And so when the bank repossessed it, they didn't tell me. They came in and got it. They sent it to auction, and all this took place. And I was never given the chance to make payments and bring it up. My company I worked for a number of years went bankrupt, and I fell behind. I was able to make on several occasions bring it up to make the payments and bring it up. And it's kind of like that budgeting thing. You fall a little bit behind, they call you, and then you make good on it. So this happened again. I think it was like 2 or 3 times this happened until I was able to sustain another job and get back, and you know how it goes. So
right.
I saw it was like a $45,000 RV. They sent it to auction, and somebody got a great deal, and now I owe them $35,000 is what they're saying, and I received a letter from some attorneys now.
So did you? You're saying basically you weren't given a chance, but you had no notification of the bill being behind and the repossession taking place?
I knew it was behind, but as soon as they came and got it, I showed up at the place. It was about 2 months later, and I noticed that the RV was gone. I'm like, what happened? I called the bank, and they said, we took the vehicle, and we sent it to auction.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It seems to me that under the, under the Act, you have some right of notification, but I don't know what that is.
And not only that, what about all the personal stuff? I mean, I had a lot of stuff in there, and why would they? Where did that go? That wasn't part of the RV. They should just taken the RV, and someone should have called me and said, "Here are your items." I don't know.
Right.
I wanted that stuff. They had no correlation between the RV. So, and it looks like they just settled for anything. I mean, this thing might only have sold for maybe a couple $1,000s, if that, and I'm getting stuck with the whole entire bill, and I wasn't given a chance to make the payments because I could have given them what they needed to be able to get the RV back and continue with this. But now I have attorneys that contacted me. They delivered the information to me via a sheriff, and it didn't have no time or date. It was
they're trying to collect the surplus judgment now.
Yeah, and then I just got something in the mail now that says you have 10 days to respond. And if I don't, it says you will lose additional properties. So I don't even know what that means.
Right.
And,
well, you're a little out of my expertise here, so I'm not sure the answer. But it would seem to me that you do have some rights.
Yeah, it just wasn't handled properly. I could have made the payments. I mean, it was to be taken, and for them not to call you and say, "Listen, we have your vehicle, and I'm going to give you a chance." Maybe, I don't know. Will they give you a chance? That they came right
I
down.
I don't know on an RV what their duties are or aren't. So I really don't. All right.
Does your office handle these situations?
I mean, we certainly could look into it for you, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of money to just sort of pay a judgment on or let lay. So my advice to you would be simply sit down with a lawyer, myself or somebody in my office or any other lawyer in the world, and take a look at your options. But we have to do a little research because I know that they give some kinds of notices on repossessions, but it sounds like you were a little out of touch with the bank here for a while, too, because you said, a couple months I noticed it was gone.
Yeah, because my RV was sitting over in a storage facility because the neighborhood I live in, association, we can't have, like boats in your driveway, and you can't have, RVs sitting out there. So I had it stored at an RV center, an area. I had my own, little number, and I just kept it there, parked there. And it was over the winter, so, it was winterized, so there would be no reason for me to even know it was there, and I didn't have to go look at it every single day. So a couple months went by, and I went there to get it ready out of winterization and see what I could do with it. And I was going to try to maybe sell it or whatever. I forget the reason why I went over, but it was gone. So I was like, okay, what happened to it? If it wasn't stolen, then it was repossessed. And so then I called the Bank of the West, and they said, yes, it's gone. In fact, it already went to auction. And
yeah. All right, my friend. Well, my answer is I don't know. You're going to have to sit down with somebody.
Okay.
All right.
I went online and I filled out information for your office.
Okay, that'll go through to my secretary, and she'll get somebody on you with you.
Okay.
All right, Jim. Boy, oh boy, I don't know what else to tell him. Jerry, question about umbrella insurance?
Oh, yeah, Carl. Last weekend I was listening to your show, and you had, as a matter of fact, your first caller getting sued, liabilities. Later callers, you mentioned umbrella policies.
Yes.
After that show, I said to myself, it might be a wise idea to go in and speak to my agent about getting an insurance policy. But on a second thought, I said, they're selling a product. So when calculating the amount of an umbrella policy that one might need, what all assets are considered? Of course, one's primary or maybe not the primary home, a second home, which I have. You mentioned OJ's pension couldn't be touched. The pension, is that a pension from a company? Does that can a 401k and IRAs be touched? Where do I come up with the figure that when they say to me, hey, we recommend this,
well,
I say, yeah, that's reasonable, I'll pay you for that product?
My thumbnail sketch would go like this. Assume for a minute, if you're going to buy this kind of insurance, that you're assuming that it's your assets or your and your wife's assets, okay?
Oh, no, they're not. Mine's singular.
Right, I'm just saying, but assume for our calculation. So I would look at that. I would look at the primary residence. I would look at any secondary real estate owned. I would look at any interest or shares in any companies or LLCs or anything like that, any stocks, etc., except things held in retirement accounts.
Meaning IRAs and 401ks?
Right.
They cannot be touched.
My understanding of the bankruptcy law is they generally can't be touched.
Okay.
Generally. Okay. But that doesn't mean that I would go with the absolute bare minimum either, because one of the problems is when you buy insurance, you don't want to have to update it every 10 seconds. So if you have $800,000 in net worth, why not buy $1 million just so you have a little extra coverage, a little gap in there?
On that note about just how much to get, barring the most egregious of blowing through a stop sign at 90 miles an hour, I'm a pretty conservative guy. Everybody tells me I drive like an old man, which I am, but the little old lady walking on your sidewalk and catching her heel, and just right now, how much can they sue you for something like that?
I got to go to break here, but I'm going to sum it up this way. It doesn't matter how negligent you are, as long as you're enough negligent to cause you to be liable, then it only measures the damages. And so if a guy trips on your sidewalk and you're found liable, and he ends up with $3 million in reconstructive surgery and hospital stays, theoretically, that's what he can collect.
Good answer.
All right, my friend.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, housekeeping matters here. I promised that guy. Made him wait longer. Just want to up the ratings here. USA Carry, Carry. Not Carrie like the girl, Kerry, but Carry like the Carry version of the. So usacarry.com, and that will get you the information on the things you wanted to know about concealed carry permits. There's some other websites too, but that's one that's good. So start with that. Fred, you're on the air. You want to talk about the liability of a hunting camp?
Yes. I belong to a hunting camp, 14 members, and we take a lot of guests along, and I'm sure we have like $500,000 worth of in liability insurance. But
right.
If one of those guests goes out and kills himself after drinking at camp, what would happen?
Well, he's a social host, and there's no liability. There's no social host liability in Pennsylvania. So if I have you over to my house and you have 18 beers and get in your car and drive away,
right,
not my problem. On the other hand, if you're underage, big problem.
Yeah.
And if I go, hey, Rominger and Associates is having a big party at Carl's house, come on over, and you're a business invitee, then we got a problem. So is a hunting camp a business? And the answer is probably not. You're not charging them anything, are you?
No. Well, for a weekend, yeah, like $50 a weekend.
Oh, you're charging. Uh-oh.
Should we be would incorporation help that?
Well, it would shield you guys, yeah. Now,
it would shield the members.
But it might not shield the hunting camp, obviously. The corporation would still be liable. But, yeah, you could do that. What's the $50 cover?
How is that again, sir?
The corporation would still be liable, but the individual members would be protected. But what does the $50 cover, and what's the theory of the $50?
Just to cover expenses, electric, gas, and what have you.
Right. How big of a camp is this?
14 members. The camp might be worth $30,000. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So charging the guests probably is a problem.
Okay.
At least in my mind, that's how I'd try to weasel in and say, hey, it wasn't social host liability anymore.
And if we're going to charge the guests, then we ought to be incorporated.
Yeah, you should be treating it more like a business too. And you don't have to necessarily be incorporated. You could create an LLC too.
And now, which one is it?
Limited liability company.
Yeah.
And the other purpose, because here's the thing for hunting camps, and a lot of guys forget about this, but with 14 members, what are the rules on my share of the camp? I mean, can I leave it to my wife? Can I leave it to my...
We got to return it back to the camp.
Right, and how's that regulated?
Well, if you die, you get $500 what you put into it.
Okay. So you guys have just like an agreement written out somewhere, some bylaws.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's good. If you had an LLC, you would put the same kind of buy-sell agreement that basically says that the person's estate has to turn the share back over and give you the first option to repurchase it.
How much does an LLC cost or incorporation cost?
I think to set up something like this for camp like yours, you'd be looking at anywhere between $700 and $2,000, just depending on how elaborate you want to be.
Right. Well, that's what I was worried about, and you answered that question. Thank you very much.
All right, my friend. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, it's one thing when you have people over, and so people always worry about this, but if you have a bunch of guys over in your backyard drinking out of a keg, and one of them takes a header in his car, not your problem. But if you're charging to drink, or if you're running a business meeting at your house, then it's no longer just a social. So we have no social host liability in Pennsylvania. Underagers, however, you serve a 20-year-old strict liability, basically. So be very careful about that. That's where people usually run afoul of it. In hunting camps, famous, they're kind of like taking your kid to France, Oh, he's 20, he can have a beer with the boys, what's the big deal? Rod, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl. Question about I heard you talk to the person about the school district wanting a Social Security number.
Yeah.
Well, I've had this little pet peeve of mine ever since I was one of the people that had my identity stolen through Veterans Administration, the laptop in Kansas City years ago.
Oh, really? You were one of those?
Yeah, unfortunately. And what I was told that, through the process of that identity theft and all that and everything, that everything that I signed, I put my Social Security number on, should have the 1974 Privacy Act. If it doesn't, you don't have to give your Social Security number.
Right.
But when I go into the doctor's office and they ask me to fill out this information on a HIPAA form, I just give them my last four, and I get this deer in the headlight stare with, the people, administrators in the office, and they say, well, that's illegal, that I have to give them the full Social Security number. But I sort of refuse to do it and explain to them the whole story about, having identity theft, and I was told by an attorney that, that you're supposed to have the 1974 Privacy Act on every form.
Right.
Is that true or not? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that. And the only thing I can tell you about Social Security numbers is we've had this with, Pennsylvania, for instance, to buy a fishing license, you're supposed to give your Social Security number now.
Right.
To buy a hunting license, you're supposed to give your Social Security number because they want to try to suspend you if you're, say, a deadbeat dad.
Right.
And I know that a lot of the the treasurers, for instance, would allow you to simply say, I refuse to enter it, and they would just push it through.
Oh, really?
Because there was some question about whether or not that was really legal or not. Because remember, people were told back when they originally issued their Social Security number that the only purpose would be for your Social Security payments.
Exactly right.
And now it's become one of 3 data points.
Right.
One of the 3 data points.
Yeah, even in a Medicare car I got recently, they have my Social Security number with a letter on the back. When I called the Social Security number, the lady said, well, no one will figure that out. That's your Social Security number. And I said, are you kidding? Yeah.
Right, because they don't look a particular way. And, I had a case years ago where Pinnacle Health ran an ad in the Patriot News, and they put my client's name, date of birth, and Social Security number in the ad.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah, that's terrible, especially being one of the individuals, like I said, have gone through that identity theft loss. It's a terrible process to have to go through. Is there any, I've gone online trying to find out information on whether, in fact, they are required by law to put that on that form. And from the attorney told me that said that if you get into the legalities, that if you put that on a form that doesn't have it 1974 Privacy Act, you have no protection.
Yeah, and see, I don't know that body of law.
Okay.
So, but it's interesting.
Okay, where could I go to find out exactly what
I would Google the 1974 Privacy Law Act and start from there.
Well, where I run into the affliction is when I, like I said, when I go into these new federal forms with all this new Obamacare, they have all these new HIPAA agreements, but they don't have it down there, but they want your Social Security number.
Right.
And they said if I don't give it to them, then I'm committing fraud.
And I don't know the answer.
Okay. All right, well, I'll have to do some research. Maybe go to my congressman about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, nobody knows. Like Nancy Pelosi said, we have to read it to find out what's in it.
Exactly.
And only now are people starting to figure out what's in it. But just remember that a giant piece of federal legislation then results in probably 100,000 pages of CFRs or codes of federal regulations over the next few years. And so who knows what it really means.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right, well, thank you very much for the information. I appreciate it.
Wish I had better answers for you. Tim, you're on the air. Hey, Tim. Oh, Tim, you on the air? No? Tim. Are you talking to Tim, Shane? Tim, now you're on the air.
Okay, how you doing, Carl?
Good.
Quick question for you. A couple of weeks ago, I was in an auto accident.
Yes.
Which I was not at fault. The other driver admitted total fault. And I lost my friend. I'm sorry. My car was totaled, so obviously I don't have a vehicle. And I have a lot of out-of-pocket expenses that neither insurance company will cover at this point. Now, can I sue the other driver for out-of-pocket expenses in small claims court?
You certainly can.
Is there any backlash to that? Or
No.
Okay.
No, but what kind of, well, let me put it to you this way. It might behoove you just to talk with an attorney. Any car accident, you can always get a free consultation, all right?
Okay.
All right, my friend. 540-0580. In the next hour, I'm going to have Vinny Manfredo here. He's going to talk a little bit about civil rights and police misconduct, 1983 actions. Of course, in the meantime, if you want to learn more about us, go to RomingerLaw.com, and the office number is 241-6070, 241-6070, or go to RomingerLaw.com. See you in a minute.